Well, the New Orleans Saints were just as we expected, slow to get started with free agency, but boy, did they open up their signings with a steal. We got all that and a little bit of lanyard for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a senior writer and reporter over at Saints News Network. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, the New Orleans Saints expecting a big visit from former Defensive Rookie of the Year, Chase Young. What would a contract look like? How would he fit? Why should the New Orleans Saints go about the signing, and why maybe they might end up second-guessing the idea? We're also going to take a look at the linebacker room for the New Orleans Saints, what it could look like in 2024, especially with our leadoff topic today, Willie Gay. The New Orleans Saints signed their first free agent of the 2024 draft cycle, and it is an absolute steal. We're going to go over how he fits, what he brings to the team, and leading off with that contract dough. We got all that coming up for you as we continue on today. We appreciate you very much for being an everydayer and being a first and making us your first listen here on the Locked On Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On for $20 off of your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The New Orleans Saints took a little while. They took a little while. We knew they were going to. They took a little minute. Gathered themselves and said, all right, we're ready. Fashionably late to the party. Show up and sign Willie Gay, the two-time Super Bowl champion linebacker from the Kansas City Chiefs. 6'2", around 240-ish pounds. Ran a 4.46 40-yard dash in his 2020 NFL draft draft evaluations process, however it is that you want to look at it. And it's an absolute steal, right? I mean, this is a guy that is a playmaker that brings a lot of speed to the middle of the defense, brings a lot of speed to the position, all of that. But it's the contract for me, all right? It's the contract for me. 1 year, up to $5 million. Now, I'm doing air quotes for up to $5 million. Why? Because if somebody says that a contract is up to $5 million or up to a certain amount, that generally implies that it is an incentive, that there's incentives in the contract, whether it be production, whether it be, playtime based, whatever it might be, that usually it means that there's some kind of incentive that's involved. So the deal itself starts probably lower than $5 million and then can tick up to the maximum of a 1 year, $5 million deal. The reason why this is a steal of a contract is because everybody looked at Willie Gay, if he got out of Kansas City, if he left Kansas City, as A, getting a multi-year deal, and B, landing at least somewhere between $7 to $10 million per year, depending upon whose estimate you're looking at. Unsurprisingly, the closer you got to Kansas City, the higher that number got. The further away you got from Kansas City, the lower that number got, but that was the range. And the Saints turn around and instead land him on an up to $5 million deal. Absolute steal for the New Orleans Saints. Now, how does he fit? I've already had a lot of people ask me, is he going to be the Demario Davis replacement come 2026 after Demario Davis's contract is done with the New Orleans Saints, which they just extended through 2025? Let's not go that far just yet. It is a 1 year deal after all. So let's see how things go here in 2024. But we can discuss how he fits on this team right now. You've got Demario Davis, who is your perennial all-pro, first or second team, all-pro, the guy that's always going to be there for every single snap, that's going to get out there on the field, do everything that he's got to do. Then you've got Pete Werner, who has been solid for the New Orleans Saints. But look, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend we know how the New Orleans Saints are. It doesn't matter how you arrive. It matters that you got there. And once you get there, you get an opportunity to compete. When you have a guy like a Willie Gay who can go sideline to sideline, truly play sideline to sideline, 4.46 speed, insane for a linebacker, that has playmaker ability. He told reporters a couple years ago his big goal going into his next season was to lead the league in interceptions. Now, he did not do that, and you're not going to do that at linebacker, and that's okay. But one of the things that the Saints have been missing in the middle of the field has been the playmaker ability. And now we've seen it a little bit more from Pete Werner, but I'm not going to sit here and say that Willie Gay doesn't compete to get a fair share of the snaps. Whether that's situational, right? A third down guy that's out there, roam in the middle of the field, be your, the linebacker you sub in on dime packages or something like that. If you want to give Demario Davis a breath, he could be a guy that comes in and plays a little bit of strong side linebacker, the Zach Bond role that should have been, all of those things. When he came to the NFL, it seemed that he was going to be an absolute shoo-in, a surefire starter as a weak side coverage linebacker. Playing with his back, playing with his, with his eyes towards the quarterback or trailing, in man coverage and tight ends, running backs out the backfield, slot receivers sometimes, all that kind of stuff. It seemed that he was poised to do that. He was outstanding with that coming out of college. His big knock coming out of college was discipline stuff, but that does not seem to be an issue at all for him going into this season or really not even going into the season, but throughout his NFL career. And so he was coming in as this weak side coverage linebacker. But then when he landed in Kansas City moved him to strong side linebacker, had him playing a little bit more downhill, playing closer to the line of scrimmage, playing, pursuing the passer, right? Rushing the passer, defending the run game, climbing laterally up the line of scrimmage, all those things. And he became pretty solid at that. He is a very good tackler. He is very good with his leverage. He understands how to attack the football in those situations while still making the tackle as well. He's got a very turnover-based mentality. He wants to make plays. He is a playmaker. That's something that the Saints need at the second level. And so is he going to be somebody that potentially competes with Pete Werner for playing time? Maybe. Who knows? You could also look at him as a guy that just simply rotates in, plays a little bit of strong side linebacker, comes in when Pete Werner needs a breath, comes in when Demario Davis needs a breath, when they need to tie a shoe, whatever it might be. But I'm not going to be surprised if we actually see quite a bit of Willie Gay out on the field in 2024. I truly would not be surprised about that. It also gives you 3 former teammates at each level of the New Orleans Saints defense. Tyrann Mathieu, former member of the Kansas City Chiefs in the secondary. Willie Gay, former member of the Kansas City Chiefs in the middle of your defense. Khalen Saunders, former member of the Kansas City Chiefs. All Super Bowl winners of the Kansas City Chiefs playing on your defensive line and playing on your defense. Pretty good setup there. And it also reunites Willie Gay with Todd Grantham, who was his collegiate defensive coordinator, who's now the New Orleans Saints defensive line coach too, which is pretty cool. I like this signing a lot. This is one of those signings, and especially because it happened early, it's not a huge money deal, all those other things. It's not going to take over the news cycle. To me, this is a signing like when the Saints signed Malcolm Brown a couple years ago, when they signed Manti Te'o a few years ago. And those guys were not all pro. They were not pro bowlers, but they made such a big positive impact on the defense. That's the way that I see this Willie Gay signing potentially panning out. And I think that's a really good situation for them. It's very low risk and it's incredibly high reward. He's also incredibly enthusiastic about the game of football, plays with a lot of excitement, will bring energy, bring juice to that defense as well. Y'all, this is a steal for the New Orleans Saints. Is it Danielle Hunter? No. Is it going to be Danielle Hunter? No. He's going to the Texans. Is it Chase Young? No. Is it going to be Chase Young? I don't know. We'll see if Chase Young is going to be in the cards for the New Orleans Saints. We're going to get to that in a second. But it's Willie Gay, and this is a solid signing for the New Orleans Saints that desperately need to rebuild their linebacker room. And we're going to dive into that next. The New Orleans Saints have 2 healthy linebackers plus Willie Gay now on their roster. So what are they going to do? We're going to break all that down as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp Therapy Online has been awesome for me. I think it'd be awesome for you too, especially if you've been thinking about trying therapy. I highly recommend BetterHelp. Think about it. If you had an extra hour in your day, how would you spend it, right? You'd want to do something constructive. You wouldn't want to spend it doing something you didn't love, but you got to identify the things that you love so you can start to make time for them. And the reality is that we're not going to get extra time in our day. So how do we find what we love and make time for it? That's something that therapy can help you out with. It's not just about being diagnosed and being psychoanalyzed and all those other things. Sometimes it's just simply about reinforcing good habits, learning what you love, and learning how to dedicate more time to it. So go and check it out today. It's entirely online. It's designed to be, really convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule, all of that. So learn what it is that makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com locked on today to get 10% off of your first month. It's BetterHelp, HELP.com/locked on. All right, family. The New Orleans Saints desperately need to rebuild their locker room when it comes to the linebacker position. And, well, they're off to a good start. But what's next at the spot? We got that coming up for you as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. Hey, we appreciate you very much, as always, making us your first listen of the day every day. I got a super special thing to tell you about that's happening over with our MLB channel. So all of our MLB shows, as you know, Locked On launched the first ever national sports 24/7 stream on YouTube. And now you're going to be able to mark your calendars for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, where we're going to be bringing you the best MLB season preview that includes insight from all of the MLB local experts here at the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you can find it March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern time on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 stream on YouTube, or for free on your Amazon Fire TV channels app as well. It's March 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Go and show our fantastic MLB shows some love. But we're going to talk about some football today. Yeah, football. So for me, the thing that I'm looking at next here, what happened? What happened to me just then? I don't know. Football, yeah. Is that I want to look at the linebacker room. So going into this season, the New Orleans Saints, or going into the offseason, the Saints had a couple of linebackers on the roster, right? The linebackers that were left were Demario Davis, Pete Werner, of course, and then Nephi Sewell. Those are the guys that are effectively like under contract that you know are going to be a part of this team going into next year, all of that. But, and then DeMarco Jackson, sorry. And then DeMarco Jackson as well. So you've got those guys. The big thing, though, is where do you go from there, right? Where do you go from that point? And so you've got to figure out, you know that Nephi Sewell is not going to be ready for training camp. So the next question is he going to be ready for week 1, right? DeMarco Jackson, where does he fit in? I mean, if you need somebody that's going to be able to take over maybe some more of the special teams role that Zach Bond, with Zach Bond having left now being a Philadelphia Eagle, you can maybe see DeMarco Jackson step into a little bit more special teams role. He was a really, really solid special teamer for them last year, especially late last season. Then you go from that to trying to figure out who's going to be your strong side linebacker, right? And maybe that's a place where Willie Gay fits in. Now, he's an athletic, do-it-all guy that can cover and all these other things. But when he got to the NFL, the first thing that he was asked to do was play on that strong side. So you could conceivably have 3 starting linebackers, right? In terms of a 4-3 base defense, Demario Davis, Pete Werner, and then I'm going to throw Willie Gay in there. But you got DeMarco Jackson too, who may not be better than Willie Gay, may not be worse than Willie Gay, but might be a better strong side linebacker than Willie Gay is, while Willie Gay might be a better middle or coverage weak side linebacker than DeMarco Jackson is, right? Like it's about the role that they're being asked to play, not necessarily just about their raw skill set. So the thing that I look at next is, how do you build out the rest of your depth? Now, there's a bunch of familiar faces that they could go to. They can go to Monty Rice. They can go to Anthony Orgy. They can go to Ryan Conley, Ty Summers, all these guys that were on their roster last season. The thing that to me is going to be really exciting is when Nephi Sewell's ready to come back, does he step right back into that strong side linebacker role, which is what allowed the Saints, because they trusted him there and because he played well at that spot, that's kind of what opened the door for them, along with injuries and things like that, to start using Zach Bond the way that they started using Zach Bond, albeit too late, right? Albeit like far too late in terms of his tenure. Now he's in Philadelphia and all that kind of stuff. But it made a big difference. Now, the Saints had to go that route because of injuries on the defensive line, but they were able to pull Zach Bond over to the defensive line room because of what Nephi Sewell was doing. So now the Saints could go in other directions. They could try to reunite. They could try to bring back a guy. I mentioned Eric Wilson in yesterday's show, or I don't know, this morning's show. And that could be somewhere that they go. And then there's a slew of other free agent tight ends that they can go to. But there's a part of me, or tight ends, linebackers that they can go to. But there's a part of me that's like, okay, you added the guy that's going to be able to be a playmaker for you. And that, again, is the thing that the Saints have been lacking in the middle of the field for quite a while. Now, Demario Davis makes plays, of course, but who were the other guys that were the real playmakers at linebacker? Pete Werner started to kind of find those moments, particularly punching the ball out, all those other things, creating fumbles, stuff like that. But like Willie Gay just gives you that game-breaking speed in the middle of the defense. And if he's going to be in Dennis Allen's defense working with Michael Hodges, like he's going to have a good time. He's going to have a very fun time in this defense that loves to attack, that likes to cover, that trusts its players in the middle of the field, all these other things. The other thing that I think Willie Gay helps you with, by the way, is the mobile quarterback, right? 4.46 speed, solid tackler, takes good angles, reads well, is a good run defender. Check. Can help you with the quarterback as well. So if I'm the Saints, I actually feel kind of good with the addition of Willie Gay, but I'm not done, right? But at the same time, I'll take a reunion with Ty Summers, a reunion with Ryan Conley, and a reunion with another linebacker, that Amani Rice, for instance, or an Anthony Orji. And if I get all those guys, then maybe I look at linebacker in the draft, a Cedric Gray late, a Peyton Wilson in the second round. If I feel like I have what I need to be able to do the luxury pick in the second round. I don't know that I will, but if I did, then that's where I would go about it. The Toledo linebacker that we broke down in mock drafts, before, who is also a former Ohio State Buckeye, by the way. So there's already a correlation and connection there. And that's a 6th, 7th round guy that you could potentially pull out, or an undrafted free agent. We saw the Saints add, they've added a lot of talent to their linebacker room through the undrafted free agent process. Nephi Sewell, Ty Summers. No, not Ty Summers. Anthony Orji, Nick Anderson. That's what I was trying to think of. These are all guys that they've added through undrafted free agency that have stuck around and have been on the team and have had time, right? And so I think they're going to be okay, but they're not done. Like, they can't be done. I'm looking at the linebacker room now the way that I look at the wide receiver room. Okay, you got your top guys, but you got a lot of filling out to do. You still got a lot of more talent to add, a lot more talent to try out, all that other stuff. And maybe even at wide receiver, I might still say you're looking for a starter at wide receiver, right? You're still looking for a possession receiver, but that could be a possession receiver that operates out of the slot, like a Hunter Renfrow. That could be a possession receiver that operates from outside, like a Tyler Boyd. That could be a possession receiver in the draft that operates from outside, like a Xavier Leggett, who I know can do more than just be a possession guy, but you know what I'm saying. He's a short-handed pass catcher and all that. Or, you go to a short-handed guy like a Malik Washington or a Malachi Corley in the second round, third round, whatever. If you trade up, trade back, whatever, and everything. So there's a lot of different ways for the Saints to be able to address this, but I don't think that they're done at linebacker. I don't think that they can be done at linebacker. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Like, that's the statement of the year from Ross Jackson right there. Put a stamp on it, mail it off to your favorite person. I just think they got a lot to do, but I think in terms of what that position looks like at the top, Demario Davis, Pete Werner, Willie Gay, solid, man. Like, feel much better about that position now at the top. And then just need to fill it out along with DeMarco Jackson, Nephi Sewell eventually, and then some of the others. So in a better place already, just with one absolute steal of a contract. 1 year up to $5 million. I don't know how they pulled that off. I don't know if that was Todd Grantham. I don't know if that was Khalen Saunders. I don't know if that was Tyrann Mathieu. I don't know if that was Dennis Allen. I don't know how they got that deal. But chef's kiss. All right, coming up next, New Orleans Saints could surprise. Good surprise with a little bit of a splash. Chase Young set to visit the New Orleans Saints along with two other teams. We'll discuss the Saints, the two other teams, what Chase Young is good at, where he needs development, and what a contract could look like. Yeah, we're going to break it all down here on today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by friends at Game Time. What time is it? It's Game Time. Game Time is my favorite place to go and buy my favorite tickets to all my favorite events, whether it's sports, comedy, music, theater events, whatever it is that I'm looking for. If I want tickets to Les Mis, they got them. I want tickets to the Pelicans, they got them. I want tickets to the Monster Trucker Rally, they got them. I can get everything that I want over on Game Time, and I don't have to book months in advance. I can book literal minutes in advance if I want to. For the football games, they'll sell you tickets after the games already started, and they're super affordable. So you definitely want to go and check them out, especially if you're like me, you like doing spontaneous things, maybe looking for like a quick date night or something like that. Like, yeah, Game Time has you covered. You'll be looking like a baller on that date thanks to Game Time. So go check them out today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase. That is $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use that code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. So much for not making a splash in free agency. Doesn't matter if it happens day 1 or day 5. The New Orleans Saints could potentially make exactly that, a big old splash in free agency, with Chase Young set to visit the New Orleans Saints along with 2 other teams. We take a look at what he's good at, where he needs development, the other teams that he's visiting with, how the Saints stack up, and what a contract could look like. We got all that coming up for you as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. We appreciate you, as always, for being here. Don't forget, we are your team every day, so we'll be right back here with you tomorrow. I'm doing this show late tonight. I'm going to go ahead and publish it Tuesday night. But I'll be right back with you with a fresh episode Wednesday morning, just taking a look at where things are, what happened overnight, all that other stuff. Like, we'll have a lot of good stuff coming out for you. And I want to stress again, the Locked On Saints Insider program. If you want film studies, I'm going to do a film study tonight on Willie Gay. Get that out to everybody. I'll do some Chase Young film study, all of that. I can't do film breakdowns on YouTube, so this is my way of being able to do that. If you want to join, text Who Dat to 504-285-7473, or just click the link in the episode description, whether you're listening or you're watching. Joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSaints. And it's 14 days free, $4.99 a month after that. You could try it out, see if it's worth it. And if you want to stick around and buy me a cup of coffee every month, I appreciate it, right? Like, it helps a ton. I travel out of my own pocket, all the other stuff. All this stuff helps. So I really, really appreciate it if you want to check it out. And I promise I will do everything I can to make it worth your while in the process. So I'm still not over this Willie Gay signing for the New Orleans Saints, but I got to move on to Chase Young, man. Like, Chase Young set to visit the New Orleans Saints along with 2 other teams. Could this potentially happen? The answer is yes, it could potentially happen. Will it happen? We don't know. We've seen the Saints go down this road before with elite edge rushers, right? Think about the Jadeveon Clowney elite at the time type of situation, to where I'm pretty sure, didn't he end up with the Tennessee Titans that year? And the Tennessee Titans are one of the teams that Chase Young will also be visiting. So it's the Saints, it's the Carolina Panthers, who just shipped off their elite edge rusher that they turned down 2 first-round picks for 16 months ago for a 2nd and a 5th to the New York Giants just a couple days ago, and Brian Burns. And then he's also going to be visiting the Tennessee Titans. So if we try to stack up those 3 teams, I don't know how you can make the argument that the Saints are less competitive than the Carolina Panthers. That's for sure. And I'm not sure if the Saints are less competitive than the Tennessee Titans in a division that's also got the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans, who are building something special, thanks to D'Amico Ryans over there. So if I'm the New Orleans Saints, I'm feeling pretty good. I feel pretty good. I feel like I can sell the vision if I'm the New Orleans Saints in that scenario. That's a good space for them to be in. So what would a Chase Young bring to the New Orleans Saints? And here's where I'm going to be uber specific about what a type of, about not just signing a player because they're good, but signing a player because you have a vision for them and because you have a role that they fit in. And so that's got to be the biggest thing. And I think that that's what you've got to be able to sell to a guy like Chase Young. So if you look at what it is that Chase Young is best at, he is a pure speed rusher off the edge. You can stand him up. He can put his hand in the dirt. Doesn't matter. But he is a guy that's going to win with speed, win with athleticism, win with bend, win with quickness. He's not necessarily a speed to conversion guy. He's not really a bull rush dude or anything like that. So he's very different than what the New Orleans Saints usually pursue. Although he is big, he is strong, right? This is a guy that was, a consensus, early first round, number 1 overall type selection guy. You know what I mean? And so in terms of conversation and evaluation and all that. And so he would fit in that way because that's what the New Orleans Saints need. They need a guy that's going to be able to come in and be athletic. That's going to be able to come in and be, that's going to be able to come in and be quick, fast, bring speed, do the things that they saw work with Zach Bond last year, but be able to do it from maybe a little bit more of an expanded pass rush role, because he would be a full-time defensive end that could also help you out against the run. So now that's where we start to talk about the places where he needs a little bit of development. So he was really good against the run his first year, and then kind of, has wavered since then. So that seems to be the big question mark and the big concern around him, is would he be able to help you out in the running game? But at 6'4", 260 plus pounds coming in, he's a people mover. He can get these blockers out of the way, all that kind of stuff and everything. And he has been able to show that he can be tenacious in the run game. And he did a good bit of that while he was with the San Francisco 49ers after he got traded out of Washington to the 49ers last year, or in the middle of the season last season. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that he could do that he could be in that number, if you will, when it comes to run stopping. And the Saints need help there because they lost Malcolm Roach. Malcolm Roach going to Denver. The Rocky Mountain Saints continue to rebuild themselves over there with Sean Payton. And, Malcolm Roach is headed out. And Malcolm Roach was your highest graded run blocker. He was one of the NFL's highest graded run stopper. He was one of the NFL's highest graded run stoppers as well. And now you just lost him in a season where you didn't take the step forward in the run game and the run defense that you expected to. So you need guys that are going to be able to contribute to your run game and help to build it up. Defensive tackle now, of course, an even bigger need with that departure of Malcolm Roach, by the way. The other thing that I think a lot of people will criticize Chase Young of, and I have been critical of this as well, and I'm not about to pacify it, but I want to bring it up, is that he's been accused of taking some plays off here and there. And that's not going to fly in New Orleans. It's not going to fly with Cam Jordan, not going to fly with Demario Davis, not going to fly with Tyrann Mathieu, not going to fly with Dennis Allen, not going to fly with Todd Grantham, not going to fly with anybody in there. And so Joe Woods, not going to fly with any of those guys. And so I think that that's one of the other things, like you're talking about, like the culture shift that you want to have and all these other things. If you're the New Orleans Saints, you can't let that go. That can't be a part of it. So that's got to be a part of the transparent conversation that they have to have with them. And one of the ways that you can also help to alleviate that is put him in a rotational role. There's nothing wrong with that. You didn't draft him, with, all the draft assets and all the other stuff. You're just signing him to a contract. That's all you're doing. You're getting him on your team. Maybe for a 1 year something kind of a situation. So I don't look at him like just because he was the number 2 overall selection in his draft doesn't mean that he waltzes in on a free agency contract after being traded away from that team and is calling the shots for himself. He gets to say, yeah, I get to take some plays off and all these other things, right? Like you don't have to treat him that way. And I don't think he would want to be treated that way. I think part of the reason why you're taking plays off and you're accused of taking plays off is because you're a part of an organization whose culture was as bad as the Washington culture has been up until very recently when they finally got Dan Snyder up out that ownership meeting, right? So that's kind of pervasive, right? Like that's not behavior that just comes out of nowhere. That's behavior that's bred from the top and then seeps all the way down to those players. So you get to set that example if you're the New Orleans Saints. So I'm a little bit less concerned about that. More just concerned about like, are you going to use him properly and let him rush as a speed rusher off the edge, give him the opportunities to get around as opposed to training him to, do speed to power and bull rush and all this other stuff. Like, and you're not going to keep him from doing what it is that he does best. The Saints have never done that before. So I think that will work out for them. Last thing that I want to look at here is what a contract could potentially look like for Chase Young. And SpotRack, some of the other, sites out there with the experts will do, market value or market valuation and all these other things. And pretty much everybody kind of is consensus around the same area that Chase Young is probably going to get or deserves like a 1 year, $12, $13 million deal. If you're the New Orleans Saints, you make that a 1 year, $12, $13 million deal with a void year or 3 void years and a $6 million signing bonus and a low first deal or whatever. And then, you're fine. You're fine. Like you can spread some of that money out and all these other things. You could do a $10 million signing bonus if you wanted to spread it out over 5 years and give him a $2 million base salary. Boom, there's $12 million for you right off the bat, Chase. And then you're paying off $2 million each year or up until he's gone with the hopes of maybe extending him into those future years as well. So it won't take a lot to get it done. It won't be hard. And, the Saints can kind of just follow what the Minnesota Vikings did with Marcus Davenport over in Minnesota if they feel like they can get him. But I think that a rotational role is key. And I think that allowing him to rush at his strength, which is with his speed, is key as well. We'll see how the visits go. We don't necessarily know when they're all happening. It sounds like the Saints or Panthers are first, and then the Tennessee Titans are third. So the Saints would either be the first or second place that he goes. So we'll see how things go along. But Saints not afraid to make a splash here, even though they waited a whole day to get involved in free agency. This is why we always preach patience when it comes to free agency for the New Orleans Saints. All right, coming up tomorrow morning, I'll have a fresh episode up for you, making sure you're all set up with everything going on around free agency. Until then, make sure you go and check out Locked On Pelicans and Locked On LSU to figure out what's going on with them LSU Tigers and those New Orleans Pelicans as well. I appreciate you as always, making us a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust you, that nation, I'll holla at you.